If there's any team in the world which is most familiar with how BDS plays, it's most likely Tempra. Reason being, both them and Vitality not only play against them in EUL, but also in the French National League, so they're seeing them, at least presumably, twice as often as other European teams. This, combined with the natural national rivalry between the two, each vying for the title of best team in France, often produces an intense match when the two meet one another. That was certainly the case this past week, where the teams had a thriller of a BO3 in the French League semifinals. If you haven't gotten to watch it, I'll leave a link in the description and highly recommend that you do. Regardless, my focus in this video is round 2 of the match's second game on Clubhouse, where BDS is attacking the cached CCTV site. If you've watched one of my more recent videos, or have just watched BDS attack cached CCTV in their recent Clubhouse games, you know that they take quite an interesting approach. The TLDR is that they ignore CCTV wall and focus on a purely construction side push, with a LEMS flanking late up red stairs in order to open up the round if the construction push is stalling out. While this is against convention, going against convention seems to be BDS's thing, and at least for this attack, it's successful more often than not. What seems to make it so successful is that BDS gained construction control generally within the first minute of the round, leaving the defenders in sight not much of a choice but to sit and wait for the execute, which, when against BDS, can be some of the most frightening 2 minutes of an anchor's life. But this is exactly where this specific round becomes very interesting. As stated before, Tempra know how BDS play, and rather than give them construction control for basically free like most other teams do, Tempra attempt to counter this by committing 3 of their players to fortifying this position. They have Malusi and Jim, Jaeger moving between Logistics, Top Main, and Master, and Bandit in construction with Smoke pretty close behind him. While it may not seem like much, occupying these positions and not allowing BDS to do exactly what they want to do is quite strong. That is, until P4 decides to peek probably the last player you would want to peek in Shaiko, and now puts his team immediately on the back foot. Reason being that the one thing which usually stalls BDS out in this attack is finding their opening frag. So now, with a little over 2 minutes left in the round, BDS are up 5v4, but still, to Tempra's advantage, they don't have construction control like they normally would around this time of the round. Tempra understand this, and even after losing Malusi, continue to commit to denying BDS that map control, which I quite like. These maybe 20 seconds that Durza absorbs here, against most teams, can turn out to be vital in the closing moments of the round. But BDS stick to their plan and continue to commit to getting the construction control that they need for this execute. This is where BDS always manages to make me smile a bit, because while they catch a lot of slack for their utility usage, one thing I continue to see in their rounds is that they are very quick to adapt and are very good at understanding their win conditions. Rather than having a LEM sitting on flank drone outside of stock like they normally do, they have him rappel up and open the construction wall, which Tempra elected to leave soft. By doing this, it forces anyone in or near construction to full commit to either falling back or playing their life off of sight. Tempra, in my opinion, smartly decide to cut their losses and fall back just in the nick of time. So at this point, BDS now have the control that they need, but about 30 to 40 seconds later than they normally do. At this point, utility in sight is generally burned, the construction wall is usually open, and they're in the process of looking for that entry frag, but in this round, they're yet to do most of that. So while Tempra are down a man, it seems that this round is pretty winnable for them. But this is where the death of Malusi really hurts Tempra. BDS are able to very quickly after this get the construction wall open, where if Malusi was on the board, we could have seen some impact tricking to take probably another 20 seconds off the board. We also could have rotated our bandit batteries over in order to trick after the first EMP, but this would have been a bit risky. Regardless, BDS managed to get the wall open. Tempra even the man count by taking down Thatcher outside CC window, but this is quickly traded out as Bride gets a pick onto the rather impatient Jaeger. So now we are in a 4v3 with about 45 seconds left. This is where BDS transition to their execute phase. Alems takes out the cast shield, forcing any player wanting to hold this angle to sit on red stairs, which would enable his typical late flank up red to be very impactful. But Alems seems to recognize that Tempra recognize how BDS typically plays this, and switches up his pathing, opting to late flank garage rather than red stairs. This is important for 2 reasons. The first is that it goes against what Alems normally does, but in reality, it seems like Voy is still wary of this. But the second and more important reason is that a player sat top rafters can really shut down this kind of take, especially if he has a weapon like the Alda, and Renshiro, who, during this execute, normally jumps in CC window and is responsible for this top rafters player, is dead. Unfortunately for Voy, he does sort of get timinged here, and after his death, the round is pretty much lost for Tempra. BDS just have way too much map control at this point for them to mount any sort of real sight hold, as evidenced by their round loss shortly thereafter. Now, even though Tempra lost quite convincingly in this round, I don't think that the scoreline tells the whole story. I really liked how Tempra played this, and with a few adjustments to the hold, I feel that it could have been really effective at shutting down what BDS get away with so often. In general, I love to see counterplay in Siege, and this is showed twofold in this round. First, in Tempra's initial idea in denying BDS easy construction control, and secondly, from BDS's ability to quickly recognize, assess, and deal with Tempra's defense. This, at least for me, is what top-level Siege is all about at both the micro and macro level.